that I went and I'll go again. I wish they could have made the addition more in line with the time. Very nice. Very nice.
Is one that is very significant and very important, I think, and it's on the life of General Edward Canby. Boone County hasn't produced many generals in the Army, but this is one that who was in the Civil War. Steve and Betsy Conrad are going to do it. Betsy did a history of Florence over at the Northern Kentucky History Day, which was excellent. And Steve contributed on the railroads and their effect upon Boone County. So I know that they are very good researchers and present a very good program. So we'll turn the program over to Steve and Betsy.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
No.
Okay. Hurry up. I wanted to mention too, Virginia told me right before the meeting started that reminded me that Katie Peel had died. When did she die?
That's
A few months ago, and Katie was, of course, a very valuable member of our society as well. So we've lost a few members, and it's up to all of us to go out and recruit some younger people. Maybe try to get your youngsters, your grandchildren, to become interested in attending these things. And we'll be working on some programs geared specifically toward children in the near future, hopefully. Now, General Edward Richard Sprague Canby. What a long name. You might remember, if you were here in November, that Judge Ferguson spoke about Piatt's Landing in Boone County, and that wonderful old plantation place was on the north shore of the Ohio River as it flows eastward. And when we think of Boone County's map, we don't think of there being an eastward flow of the Ohio River, but there was, but for merely a 4.5 mile stretch before turning to the south. It's almost as though that river was reluctant to leave this beautiful place and flow on to meet the mighty Mississippi. Now you might remember that Robert Piatt, who was a descendant of French Huguenots who fled to Holland because of religious persecution, then immigrated to America in the 1700s. Now he purchased land in Boone County on that very beautifully terraced shoreline called East Bend. He built there, first of all, a riverboat landing, and then a ferry business, and then in 1840, that large brick home where he and his family lived for many years. About that same time, a young doctor named Israel T. Canby came to this area from Prince George County, Maryland, with his parents and other family members, including his very well-to-do aunt, Anne Sprague, who already owned property in Boone County. Now, it is believed that the Canbys were descendants of one of the oldest Quaker families of Pennsylvania. Their ancestor, Thomas Canby, was born in the town of Thorne in Yorkshire, England in 1666. And he is believed to be the common ancestor of all the Canbys in America. He came from England to America with William Penn in 1683 and settled in Philadelphia. Thomas Canby had been imprisoned in England on account of his religious views. His ancestors had fled to England from France because of religious persecution there. In October of 1860, Dr. Canby purchased a 1,000-acre farm situated immediately to the east of Piatt's Landing, where Robert and Nancy had built their expansive new home.
This was Piatt's Landing. About here is where the location of that cabin was located.
Just 3 months later, on a cold winter day, to be exact, January 12, 1817, Dr. Israel Canby married the beautiful Elizabeth Piatt, the oldest daughter of Robert and Nancy Piatt. So the newlyweds took up residence in that small cabin that sat just to the east of the Piatt's brick home. On November 9, 1817, Elizabeth Piatt Canby gave birth to their first child, and he was a bouncing baby boy. The new parents named him Edward Richard Sprague Canby. Had to get that Sprague in there because the wealthy aunt, Anne Sprague, wanted to get that name. He was called Richard, however, by his friends and family. When little Richard was barely 3 years old, in 1820, Dr. Canby sold his East Bend farm and moved his family to Madison, Indiana, where the first 5 of Richard's 6 siblings were born. During his childhood, Richard was frequently permitted to return to the home of his grandparents at Piatt's Landing. So he had a lot of fond memories of that. In 1828, the Canbys had moved once again, this time to Crawfordsville, Indiana, where Richard's father decided to challenge the incumbent governor, James B. Ray, for the Democratic nomination for governor of Indiana. But he was unsuccessful. In 1832, Richard was enjoying his summer vacation with his grandparents and their younger children at Piatt's Landing. He would have been about 14 years old. Now, he had an uncle. Richard's uncle, Jacob, was Robert and Nancy's 3rd son, and he was only 3 months older than Richard himself. So those 2 boys were always together during these visits. In fact, they occupied the same room in the upper level of the home. During this particular summer, Robert Piatt had hired a handyman to take care of some repairs and painting in and around the home. And it was agreed that the man would stay in the same room with the 2 boys. Now, in 1832, there had been a terrible outbreak of cholera in the whole region. And this hired man was absolutely terrified of contracting the disease. So before retiring each night, he fortified himself with a variety of cholera preventatives and remedies, including a little folded paper containing cayenne pepper. Now, on one occasion, the handyman placed these items on the windowsill, and then he fell sound asleep. Later, when the boys crept in to go to bed, they spied those containers on the windowsill, and being naturally inquisitive, they unfolded the paper with the pepper and sniffed the powder. With burning nostrils and throats, they seized the sleeping man, and with much struggling and yelling and shouting, they pulled him toward the window, and they intended to throw him out. The window was 30 feet high off the ground. Fortunately, Richard's grandfather responded in time to restore order. Now, at the age of 16, Richard graduated from Wabash College in Indiana, and in 1835, he was appointed to the United States Military Academy at West Point in New York, where he was called Sprig by his fellow cadets. In July of 1839, Canby graduated from West Point and was commissioned as second lieutenant in the 2nd U.S. Infantry. A month later, on August 1st, 1839, Richard married the beautiful Louisa Hawkins at Crawfordsville, Indiana. Now, Louisa Hawkins Canby was born on Christmas Day in 1818 in Paris, Kentucky, to John and Elizabeth Waller Hawkins. Relatives and friends usually called her Lou. Like the Canbys, the Hawkinses had moved from Kentucky to Indiana. After graduating from Georgetown Female College in Georgetown, Kentucky, Lou returned home to Crawfordsville to plan a lovely summer wedding to her handsome lieutenant. Incidentally, Louisa's younger brother, John Parker Hawkins, was also a West Point graduate who served during the Civil War and retired a brigadier general in 1894.
Well, as a second lieutenant, his first assignment, go ahead. His first assignment was he served in the Seminole War in Florida. And of course, he had various assignments there. And in June of 1846, he was promoted to the first lieutenant. He also, during this next period of time, he transferred Indians to Arkansas, and he was assigned to the garrison in Niagara, New York. He had recruiting service from 1845 to 46, and as I said, he was promoted to first lieutenant in June of 1846. And then he was given a brevet promotion to captain. And whenever we use the term brevet, it means, if those of you that are in the military may understand, there was what they called the temporary promotions, and then there was permanent promotions. So the brevet promotion was a temporary promotion at that time, and then later he was given a full assignment of being a captain. But he was promoted to a brevet captain and assigned to the staff assistant as the adjutant general in 1847. He served in the War of Mexico, and he saw action in the siege of Veracruz and the Battle of Contreras. Yeah, Contreras and the Battle of Churubusco?
Something like that.
Something like that. I'm not very good.
Churubusco.
And the assault and the capture of Mexico City. And during that time, he was promoted to brevet major in August of 1847 for his gallant and meritorious service and conduct. And then a month later, he was promoted another brevet promotion to lieutenant colonel for gallant conduct during the Belen Gates at the city of Mexico, where Mexico surrendered. And then next, during the war with Mexico, Richard's father, Dr. Israel Canby, died in Indiana. And his death, Richard's mother, Elizabeth Piatt Canby, and siblings moved back to Boone County, where she gave birth to the last child, Richard's youngest sister, Frances. Next, Richard served in various posts, holding adjutant general in California from 1849 to 1851. He covered a period of the territory's transition to statehood in California.